Syndicated source material.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Syndicated Source Material. All right, we're getting into our 13th episode here. Well, the 13th episode that aired on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network on Blog Talk Radio. Getting ready to talk What If Spider-Man Joined the Fantastic Four from Issue 1 of Volume 1 of What If. Now, this episode was released in the week of Christmas, 2014. What I had intended to do that week was to provide some miniature episodes, and I kind of talk about that in the podcast. So that's why this one's pretty short. Originally, it was about 52 minutes. I've got it down to a little over 30 minutes now. So it's a smaller episode, quick listen. You'll hear me mention Ronnie during the podcast. Ronnie was listening to the podcast live, so this was a live show. You could probably tell by the audio quality when you listen. But it was a fun show, just a real quick hit, nothing big, but it was my first opportunity to get to talk about the What If comics on source material. And the rest of Christmas week, I did more What If comics. You'll be hearing them as syndicated source material goes along. I think we've got a total of four What If comics that we're going to be discussing. So sit back and relax and listen to the first issue of the first volume of What If. What if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? Hey, welcome to another episode of Source Material. I am your host, Jesse Starcher, and tonight, just give you a little mini episode. A while back, this was probably about, it was a few months back. This was before Blog Talk started limiting the amount of shows that we could do. We ran into a little bit of an issue there. But I thought it would be really cool to do some coverage, like short episodes, like throughout a week. Like have a whole week devoted to DC Elseworlds. That would be, I was like, man, I could do a whole week, just short little episodes. If any of you have ever had a chance to read the Elseworlds titles of DC, what they are pretty much like alternate realities of some DC characters. Some pretty good storylines, too. They're pretty decent-sized books if you ever get a chance to get your hold on some of them. That kind of got shot down because as soon as I thought of that, later that week we found out we couldn't do too many episodes at the same time. So, shot that back, and then this week presented itself to where we have a lot of openings for each week, each day. And I thought, well, it'd be pretty cool to hop in there and do something similar. This week and next week, I'm going to cover some of my favorite Marvel What If titles. And I thought tonight it would be a great way. We're just going to start out with What If, Volume 1, Issue 1. This came out in 1977. Created, written, and edited by Roy Thomas. Now, Roy Thomas is he's a pretty famous comic book writer. He came up with an idea of, let's do some alternate stories for some of our Marvel superheroes. Okay? One of the things that I like about the What If stories, it presents to you an encapsulation of what could have been. And I'm kind of a big fan of fate, and if you weren't there at that one moment, or if something had gone wrong in that one instance of time, where would you how would that affect your life, 5-10 years on down the road? And that, to me, I really like that idea. Well, obviously Roy Thomas did too, because he had he came up with these lines of stories. So what he does is he takes a specific event that occurred in Marvel history, puts a spin on it. The other thing that really what kind of allows him to do is it gives him free reign. One of the things that you'll notice in some of these stories that I tell, characters are not like they are in what they call the 616, the regular Marvel universe. They're not safe. In one issue, you may see Captain America get killed off pretty easily, and some kind of crazy thing you'd never even think would happen in the Marvel universe. Some other issues, you'll see some of your great superheroes and villains. There's even some villains who become heroes. But it gives the writer free reign to go in there and take these characters and spin a story, albeit a quick one, and it's just a one-shot issue, but spin a story that gives the reader, a nice little peek into what might have been. Tonight's story, like I said, Volume 1, Issue 1, it is What If Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four I believe in regular Marvel, regular Marvel U. I think I've read this story. I'm pretty certain. It's been a while. I think I collected it, got it from the library in one of those Essentials. I think it was a Fantastic Four Essentials. But anyway, Spider-Man once tried to join the Fantastic Four, but it never panned out. We'll just put it that way. So this book takes a look as to what would happen if he would have successfully joined the Fantastic Four. Another thing to mention is that they call these issues their double-sized issues, and I noticed that right off the bat. It was a fairly long issue. I thought I was just going to be like, okay, this is going to be an one issue thing. I'll be wanting to quickly get through it, but it was actually, I think, a good 30-some pages. They do tell a story, and they give enough, they give the issues enough space, I guess you would say, in order to tell that story in. Sometimes, and trust me, there's a lot of times where you're left wanting more, but they do their best to try and give you a story, a longer story than what you would normally pick up in one issue of another comic. So let's go ahead and get into it here. I think I've covered everything. Now, right off the bat, you'll notice if you get a hold of this issue, the Watcher looks totally different than what we're used to today. That was one of the first things that struck me. First page, we get the Watcher. Now, for those of you who are not familiar who the Watcher is, and to be honest, I'm not too familiar. I just know him basically from the What If comics and some of the Fantastic Four comics. He's a being who, just like his name says, he watches. He is a recorder of the universe's history. I don't even know if I can go as far as universe. I know that he will appear when, almost kind of like the Mothman does. If you're familiar with who the Mothman is. But he appears when shit's about to go down, basically. But his mantra is he's not allowed to get involved. But if you're familiar with what the Watcher looks like, in recent history, big old round bulbous head. He is a giant. Wears this like robe / toga. You can immediately see right off the bat, he looks totally different. Like his head is a lot more square, and it looks more human than he does alien compared to recent artistic drawings of the Watcher. Almost every What If issue opens up with the Watcher telling you, hey, I can see. Not only can he see into our reality, but he can see into alternate realities also. He can go and look in a different reality and look to see if that one choice was made differently, what would occur. So Watcher's being nice to us and telling us, hey, I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit of a secret here. This is the way things would have looked if this would have happened. So the Watcher goes on in the beginning of this book and proceeds to tell us about his powers pretty much. But he gets to the main meat of the issue. He says, okay, I'm going to tell you about what would have happened if Peter Parker, Spider-Man, would have joined the Fantastic Four. Now, they do a good job of telling the story that led up to this. The actual decision, which I think mirrors what happens in the Marvel U. And if you're familiar with who Peter Parker / Spider-Man is, he's a young kid. And mind you, this happened early on in Peter Parker's crime-fighting career. When he was Spider-Man, he tried to join the Fantastic Four. Now, Parker's always been a kid trying to find a way to make turn his talent into money. If you're familiar with the Spider-Man movie, he became a wrestler to try and make some money, and of course, how that all panned out. He worked as a photographer for the Daily Bugle, using his own camera to capture himself as Spider-Man fighting crime. So Peter Parker's got this great idea. It's like, you know what? I think he sees like a magazine of with Ben Grimm on the front of the thing, and he's like, what I need to do is I need to go join the Fantastic Four. That'd be a great payday. So he gets all up in the costume, and I think he pretty much realizes he can't get through the front door. So he decides he's going to make an appearance through the top of the building, or basically the upper part of the I don't think this is the Four Freedoms Plaza at this point in time. I think it's the Baxter Building. I could be totally off on this. Anybody want to correct me on that? Send me a message on Facebook or on the Radulich and Broadcasting site. But regardless, he's going to go into where the Fantastic Four's headquarters is.
So he basically takes the elevator up top of this building and slings his way into an open window where the Fantastic Four are there working. Just imagine that. You're just sitting there working, and all of a sudden Spider-Man just pops right in. Now, it's not like he comes in and he says, hey, guys, I'm here for a job interview. Nope, we get your classic superhero trope where, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man start fighting each other. Ronnie's chiming in and saying he's pretty sure it's the Baxter Building. I think I'd have to agree. I know that for a fact that they didn't name Four Freedoms Plaza in any way, and I think Four Freedoms Plaza showed up sometime after, a good ways after. I'm thinking it was the 80s, but I'm not the Fantastic Four guy. I could tell you guys that right up front because I've maybe owned like 5 or 6 issues, and I probably read 3 of them. But anyway, so Spider-Man comes, just right through the window. The Fantastic Four are like, what the hell? And we get a fight between each member of the Fantastic Four against Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's holding himself pretty well. And he pretty much tells them, I'm going to, this is my, Peter Parker or Spider-Man says, this is my exhibition. I want to try and become part of the team. Me facing you guys and showing you I could do better, that should give me top salary. He specifically says that should get me top salary on the team. Well, there's a little bit of a problem with that. And they proceed to tell Peter Parker that, unfortunately, Fantastic Four is a non-profit organization. So they can't pay the guy. Now, in this book, they make sure to tell you that at this point in time, Spider-Man says, well, geez, I'm out of here, pretty much, and leaves. That is what happens in the regular Marvel U. However, Parker Luck, that's right. However, what ends up happening is, instead of them letting Peter Parker go, Susan Storm, Invisible Woman, yells out to him, Spider-Man, please come back. And so as he's swinging his web, he comes back and he sits down and he says, well, I never couldn't never resist a pretty lady. And Sue makes a case to get Spider-Man on the team. Now, there's, of course, contention between Ben and Johnny are kind of, Ben Grimm, the Thing, and Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, are kind of against bringing Spider-Man on there. And Reed Richards even makes a mention, says, hey, you hide your identity, plus you've got problems with the police. Why don't you, it's up to you how you want to handle this, but if we were to trust you, you need to show us your secret identity. Now, that was big, folks. Peter Parker's secret identity was a huge thing, just like Clark Kent and Superman. Not too many people knew who the real Spider-Man was. And of course, Spider-Man's really, in actuality, Spider-Kid. I mean, this is a teenager, high schooler in his early years swinging around as a crime fighter. So you can imagine the shock that when he pulls his mask off, he's just a kid. But that gains his trust from the Fantastic Four. They decide to accept him. So the next day, they call a press conference. They're there to unveil their newest member, and they do it in some great fashion where they're all up there on the stage. They take their insignias off. If you're familiar with the Fantastic Four costume, they have a big 4 right on their chest. Well, they ripped the insignias off, and now they have a 5. Woo! So here we are. We're going to introduce our newest member, and they bring in Spider-Man. Well, huge press conference. Guess who's in attendance? That would be J. Jonah Jameson. And immediately he's accusing Spidey of, all the stuff that his paper has accused him of doing, specifically about sabotaging a NASA mission. Reed Richards immediately steps in and says, hey, I vouched for Spider-Man. He definitely did not do that. That J. Jonah Jameson changes his tune, and now he's all for Spider-Man. So we now have the Fantastic Five. We still got the FF, but now instead of the 4, it's the Fantastic Five. So the book goes on and chronicles some of the adventures that the Fantastic Four have, or the Fantastic Five have, talking about some of the popular stories of Spider-Man and how things kind of changed. Nothing huge, just a story about the chameleon, how he fades into obscurity because Spider-Man is now part of a team. There is a battle between him and the Vulture, or I should say them and the Vulture. The Vulture, this villainous guy with these anti-gravity wings, I think, or he has some kind of anti-gravity thing on him. They mention that stuff, but they easily handle the Vulture, which apparently was quite a task for Spider-Man in his own book when he in the regular reality by himself. Now that what they're getting across here is now that Spider-Man's part of a team, they're handling things. A lot of the challenges that Spider-Man faced are way easier than obviously what it was when he was alone. Okay, so now we get to the crux of the story, where where a bulk of the story happened. And that's where Reed Richards is talking about going up onto this meteorite. Now, as for the purposes of the meteorite, I just know that they can only, I can't remember what specifically they got to go up there and check out, but their car, or the space shuttle, can only seat 4. So what they've decided is that, okay, one of us is going to have to stay behind. And Reed says, Sue, you stay here. Me, Johnny, Ben, and Spider-Man will go up and go onto the meteorite. Well, as they go, so Sue stays back. They fly up, and I think they end up on the moon, and there is a certain Russian and his guerrillas who show up. Now, a villain by the name of Red Ghost. Remember, we're in either the early endings or we're still in the midst of the Cold War, so we got a nice Russian villain here. His plan was to take his 2 guerrilla buddies up and get into these cosmic rays, just like the Fantastic Four did, and try and gain powers, and he does. He becomes the Red Ghost, and his apes become super apes. He does this at the same time Reed Richards is up there, and they sure enough meet on the moon. And the Watcher's there, by the way, also. But they have a battle between, the members of the Fantastic Four that are up there and the Red Ghost and his super apes. Of course, the Fantastic Five, or Fantastic Four at this point, win. They're able to handle the Red Ghost pretty easily. Now, while back on Earth, Sue gets this telepathic call from none other than the villainous, and I say villainous at this point in time, we'll just say that's an ambiguous term, but Namor the Submariner. Namor has always had a thing for Sue. One could say Sue has kind of had a thing for Namor also. She's devoted to Reed. That's pretty much her. I don't know if they're married at this point in time. Also, I think she's still Susan Storm. But anyway, she's devoted to Reed, but she's got this man crush Monday on Namor, I guess you would say. But anyway, he sends out this telepathic call and says, "You must meet me." And well, Sue, being all by herself, she decides to go and meet with him and see what the heck is going on. Well, as soon as she's there, she's trying to talk to him. He's not saying anything, and he kind of steps aside. Of course, he meets her at like this pier or something, and this. I love the 70s, okay? Because he steps aside and there's this fish that's like hovering in the in midair with this big eye, and it's called a fluttering hypnofish. It proceeds to hypnotize Sue. Namor grabs her, takes her down into the sea. So, what's going on with Namor here? He's got a hold of Sue. What's his end game? We're trying to figure that out. Well, we find out that Namor is actually not himself. Namor is being controlled by this villain by the name of Puppet Master, a manipulative, creepy-looking guy who his powers, which, by the way, I totally pasted the Marvel Universe Puppet Master link here. From what I understand, his powers derive from this radioactive clay that he had. He molds the clay into the likeness of whoever it is he wants to control, and he has control of that person in some way. Well, Puppet Master has a hold of Namor and is controlling him to do this, to take Sue. Well, the Fantastic Four get back and realize the Fantastic Five, 4 of the 5, man, I'm going to really have trouble with that one tonight. They get back and they see that Sue's gone. She's, where the heck is she? Well, in true villainous fashion, Namor projects himself mentally to the team and says, he challenges them, which is just hilarious. He challenges the Fantastic Four, Fantastic Five, and they pretty much say, it tells Rita, hey, I've got your woman, why don't you come and get her? Well, you don't want to challenge the Fantastic Five. They've been on a pretty good roll right now, taking care of villains, so they hop in their Fantastic sub, and they head down into the bottom of the sea, and it's like they have no idea where the heck he's at, and they even mention that in the book, which is funny. They have no idea where Namor's at, but he's like, I narrowed it down to pretty much the Atlantic Ocean, the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, bit of a range there to try and just spitball where Namor is, but he ends up finding Namor, luck of the draw. So Spider-Man, Human Torch, the Thing, Reed Richards show up. They find Namor. They find where Namor's hideout is. Well, and this big, I'm bringing this up because it's hilarious. This big clam, okay, shuts down on their sub. It knocks out our heroes because it was a clam that because it gives off chloroform vapors. I don't know if that's a real thing, but if it is, that's messed up. his chloroform vapors knock our heroes out. Namor grabs them and brings them into his headquarters. So these guys are groggy. They're waking up at Namor's. They're getting their senses, and immediately they look out and they see Sue is trapped in this ball that's surrounded by this humongous octopus. Of course, Reed Richards and, the rest of the team are like, what the hell's going on? And they go after Namor, and we get a good fight, okay? Now, Johnny is, man, I get into the details of this because it's freaking hilarious. Johnny is taken out by Submariner, all right? Not like Submariner hits him and knocks him out or something like that. No. Submariner, I want you to picture this, folks, has a double-headed mop, all right? That's what it looks like. Double-headed mop, and it's a weapon he just happened to have by. He's prepared for the Fantastic Five to show up. It's called an unthinking flame eater, and he uses it, and it apparently, I don't know if he, does, oh boy, I want to reach for a reference here, but I don't know if he does a Cody from Step by Step with the mop and glow up in his face or whatever, but he handles the Human Torch pretty easily. I'm laughing at my own reference because that's a reach back, folks. I tell you what, YouTube that. But anyway, he sucks the flame out of Johnny Storm and knocks him to, he's weakened by it and knocked to the ground. Ben gets hit with some kind of fungus that keeps growing and makes him really hard. It makes it really hard for him to move. So as he moves, this fungus keeps growing on him. He can't move. So there's your powerhouse. He's out until he's able to muster up enough strength after Spider-Man shows up and Reed Richards also combine their powers and basically wrap up Namor in webbing and Reed Richards' own body. The fantastic, we'll call him Fantastic Man. Mr. Fantastic, thank you. Anyway, they wrap Namor up and get him subdued. Ben Grimm finally breaks free, and he heads out after Sue. Meanwhile, Sue's in this globe, and the octopus is either going to crush her or whatever. Well, the Thing gets out there, gets a hold of the octopus, and sends it flying. Now, as I gotta pull this issue up because there's a quote here. Give me a second. As he's got Sue, okay, one of the things that he notices is that Sue's being quiet. Like he mentions that she's being awful quiet. At first, when I read that, I was like, oh man, she's either knocked out or she's dead. Okay, but here's the panels. I'm going to read it. He says, not a whimper out of her. First time I ever saw a female who could keep her mouth shut for so long. Well, that's Mr. Sensitivity for you. But let's just go ahead and make note here that the writers made sure to put a little panel in here that says Ben Grimm, of course, has just revealed that in any time continuum, his knowledge of the ways of women is something less than perfect. So just something that struck me pretty dang funny. But anyway, he brings Sue in. We get a cut. After he brings Sue in, lays her down on the ground. We get a cut to where the puppet master is still hanging out. He's actually hanging out in his own sub near where the battle's going on. Got his little figurines or whatever there that he's messing around with. So we know the Puppet Master is still in control. Now, as to whether there's a distance limit on Puppet Master's control, that's nothing that I saw. It may be. I didn't know if he has to be within 300 feet in order to be able to control his guys. But here he is. He's manning his own sub, and he's right by the battle, and he's using these figurines. So we know Puppet Master's there, and he probably still has control of Namor. Now, Reed is not dumb to the fact that the Submariner is in love with Sue, okay? And I think that's one of the first battles that they had with the Submariner. I think he had an infatuation with Sue. That kind of, I think that the way that went down is obviously they were able to either defeat Namor or whatever, but Namor's been in love with Sue for quite a while. Reed could not understand why Namor would put Sue in such peril. He doesn't understand why would you, if you want to get at us or get at Reed Richards, you go after Reed Richards. He would never see Namor actually putting Sue in danger in order to get to Reed Richards. So he's kind of confused as to what's going on. Now, Spider-Man jumps in and he comments that he notices that his spider sense is tingling, that Namor is acting like a puppet. And well, what do you know? Reed Richards, one of the smartest men in the Marvel Universe, put 1 and 2 together, and it may be a reach, but he immediately realizes that the Puppet Master is behind this. So maybe it's not much of a reach, but whatever. So Reed Richards is immediately aware that the Puppet Master is behind the way Namor is acting. And Namor is actually fighting the Puppet Master's hold over himself. Now, just as he starts to fight that, back comes the giant octopus. Okay? Giant octopus comes down and hits this dome in which these guys are all standing, because we had to have a dry area for our heroes and villains to fight in. But anyway, he hits this dome, and he cracks this dome, and all this seawater starts rushing in. And as he does that, he immediately turns his attention to a sub off in the distance. And sure enough, that's the Puppet Master sub. And the octopus goes and grabs the Puppet Master sub. I'm assuming kills him, crushes the sub, does whatever, and kills the Puppet Master, because Namor is able to free himself of the Puppet Master's hold. I assume he's dead. They don't really go into it anymore in the issue. Meanwhile, our heroes have to deal with all this rushing water in. Well, we get a good team up between Spider-Man and Human Torch while they are able to seal up the crack in the dome and is able to stop the water coming in. So right there you're thinking, okay, this is a good place to end it. We've got rid of our villain. Everybody is happy. The heroes have saved the day. We've got Sue back, and Namor's finally acting like he's got some sense, but that's not the end. Namor looks over at Reed Richards and is like, let's end this. It's time for us to finish this. The battle for Sue Richards, or Sue Storm, is on. And Reed Richards is like, bring it. So they're just about to come to blows, Sue immediately pipes up and begs them to stop. She says that since Reed Richards, she comes up and she says, stop, I'll choose. And both of them are like, what? And Sue says, look, I will choose who I want to be with. Since Reed Richards and the rest of the team didn't need me, I choose to be with Namor. So Sue, out of all this, feels like she's unwanted and says that she's just going to go ahead and we don't want any more fighting between you two. I'm going to live the rest of my life with Namor. Now, Namor's like, well, I have this prototypical device that's right over here. How convenient. But come over here and step into this device and you'll be as I am. You'll be an Atlantean. Sue, without hesitation, goes over there, proceeds to take this change and becomes an Atlantean. She then comes out of the device. After a few seconds, she's like, oh, I feel changed, She starts to not be able to breathe. Well, she is a true Atlantean, and that she cannot breathe air any longer. So she is now, not only should she choose Namor, this is, at first you're like, okay, well, she can go back to Reed at any time she wants to. Not anymore, folks. She's now an Atlantean. Well, okay, maybe Reed can figure out a way to get her back. Well, maybe he'll figure out a way to fix things. And once Namor realizes that she cannot breathe, he immediately takes this prototype device that he used on her, throws it towards probably the same hole that Johnny and Spider-Man just got finished patching up, and breaks this dome, and all the water comes rushing in because he wants to get his love to the water as soon as possible so she doesn't suffocate. So now the device that changed her is now gone. There's no turning back. Sue Richards is now an Atlantean who has to breathe underwater. So it's done. That's one of the things that makes this story so remarkable. When I say remarkable, it's a what if. When you get into what if stories, they feel like throwaway stories because they're not part of the real Marvel U. But for a number one issue of a series that came out in the late 70s, this was probably pretty groundbreaking to basically end the relationship of Sue Storm and Reed Richards. At the end of the issue, so there's no going back. That's the point I'm trying to make. There's no going back. Things have irreparably been changed in this universe for the Fantastic Four/5, now /4. At the end of the issue, Reed tries to make himself feel better that maybe Sue, as a companion to Namor, the Submariner, will now act as a conscience for Namor. Also, you see there's some guilt that Spider-Man feels for. Spider-Man apparently is aware that his choice actually affected this outcome. He feels guilty for actually joining the Fantastic Four, and it felt like he had a hand in ending their relationship. And so that's the end. That's the end of issue 1 of the first volume of What If. So right off the bat, like I said, one of the big things of these issues is that they can tell you a story and show you the repercussions that would have never seen. You probably never regularly, shouldn't say never, because we've seen a lot of stuff, especially between Reed Richards and Sue Richards. There's been some tumultuous events, but again, it's something that it's an avenue they could take you and tell you a decent story. And it's not always a happy ending. You may think that, going into a story like this, you're wanting to hear happily ever after, but you'll find a lot of times with the what if stories, there's a lot of dark turns, especially in some of the later issues. there's some dark stuff that happens, but makes for great stories. So I want to end it there. I do want to make a couple mentions here. Actually, just one. Spidey does join in the Fantastic Four at one point in the Marvel Universe, and this wasn't too long ago. He actually joined shortly after Johnny Storm died, and I don't know if he joined at any point in the past. For some reason, I don't think he was. There was a Fantastic Four that happened in the 90s, I think. Maybe that. I see the Punisher, I see Ghost Rider, I swear Mr. Fix-It, the Gray Hulk was part of it. That might have just been like a 2-issue thing. I want to say it happened in the late 80s, early 90s. But anyway, for some reason I'm thinking Spider-Man was part of that, but I don't think he was now. However, enough about me babbling of stuff I do not definitely know. I do know for a fact that he did join the Fantastic Four after the Human Torch was killed back in, hold on, we got somebody chiming in, so let me take a look. Maybe we got an answer. Gray Hulk, Ghost Rider, Wolverine, and Spider-Man. I knew that, I for some reason I thought Spider-Man was part of that. I swear the Punisher was part of it too. I totally could be wrong. But anyway, Johnny Storm died, I think, I want to say it was 2008, and I know it was in the late 2000s here, when he died, and, it was probably 2010, because I think I was collecting the Spider-Man issues at that point in time. Anyway, it was sometime after 2010, because I know for a fact I was collecting Spider-Man from that point forward in 2010 after my son was born. Johnny Storm ends up dying, and Spider-Man feels that, he would be a great addition to, plus he felt a really big kinship with Johnny Storm. If you look at Spider-Man and the Human Torch, both young bucks, both mouthy, and they had quite a bit of a kinship there at one point. And so Spider-Man joined, and he became part of what they changed it from the Fantastic Four to, I think, the Freedom Foundation. Again, if that's something I'm incorrect about, feel free to, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I know it was FF. They kept it FF for sure. But that is something that I noticed. I was actually reading up before I got on to here. Some of these Marvel what-if stories actually take, some of them, after they were printed, a few years later, and sometimes a decade or so later, they actually became part of the Marvel U in some kind of a way. I read a top 10 list of some of the greatest what-if stories that actually felt like they were a basis of what actually happened in the regular Marvel universe, because there are some twists and turns that are shown in the Marvel What If series that translated at some point into the regular Marvel universe. So that's going to end it. Happy holidays, everybody. I just want to go ahead and tell you that. A couple of days out of Christmas, I hope everybody finds themselves well. I hope everybody finds themselves having a good time with family. Make sure to, enjoy the time that you guys have with your loved ones. I want to take a few moments and make sure to get that across to you. Be thankful for every moment that you have with your families and your friends, especially around the holiday season. Make use of every moment that you have and enjoy life, especially around these holiday seasons. The ones that you love, hug them close, tell them that you love them, and don't take a single moment for granted out there. So from me to you, to all my source material listeners, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, very Merry Christmas. I'm going to talk to you guys before New Year's, I'm fairly certain. But if I don't, or if you don't listen to me before then, have a happy New Year, and I wish you all the best. I'm glad you guys got to join me tonight. I hope you learned something, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Thank you very much for joining us. Do not forget to subscribe to our new home by punching in W2M Network on just about any podcast platform to get all of our content into your audio feed. Also, give a like to the Rattleich in Broadcasting Network and W2Mnet.com Facebook page in order to stay on top of everything that we have to offer. If you'd like to follow the Source Material Podcast on social media, just follow @SourceMattCast on Twitter, and we are on Facebook @Source Material Comics Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please feel free to share. We look forward to entertaining you again soon.